welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Poverty, featuring Andrew Green, Assistant Executive Director of Shepherd Community Center in Indianapolis. I almost gave you a promotion there, Andrew. My name is Tim Swearens, and I'm your host for these conversations that explore why poverty remains such a persistent problem in the United States. On this episode, we'll discuss a crisis in education in Indiana and across the nation involving a high rate of chronic absenteeism among students. The U.S. Department of Education has reported a national chronic absentee rate of 29% in the 2022-23 school year. In Indiana, nearly 1 in 5 students missed at least 18 days of school in the last school year. Before the pandemic, Indiana's chronic absentee rate was 11.2%, so almost a doubling of the rates since before the pandemic. Andrew, why are so many kids now missing so much school?
That's a really complex question, I think, and a really sad statistic, of course. That's just really incredible to think about, missing almost 4 weeks of school over the course of the year. Yeah. And I'm thinking about how detrimental that is for a lot of our neighbors, a lot of the kids. But I think there's a lot of pieces that play into it, and obviously it's different for each family, but I think some of the things we've actually been talking with our students about it. So talking to kids at the local schools, both just across the board, some of our staff have been doing that, trying to listen and hear what people are saying. Why are they missing school? And so there's a number of different kind of themes that have developed. So a couple of them are caring for a sibling. So maybe mom or dad needs to be working, needs to be having some sort of income. So that means older brother or sister needs to stay home and care for a sibling. Sometimes some of the other ones that we've heard are related to just not feeling adequate in class. So whether that's sometimes a language barrier, meaning maybe English isn't their first language, so they're not feeling comfortable in class. Maybe they're feeling embarrassed because they don't know what's going on. They've gotten so far behind for whatever reason that it's embarrassing for them to be there. So that's another driving factor that we've heard. Can't understand the language, obviously, maybe not able to read. So you can imagine that if some of those are your challenges, you don't really want to be in class. You don't really want to be at school. So that's significant. Some kids have said that they don't feel like anyone's really helping them. So I think that's probably a reflection, not that teachers don't care, but maybe there's not enough support to offer kind of individualized help. And then I think kind of circling back to that working one is sometimes the kids are feeling the need to work, pressure from mom or dad to help provide for the family. So those are a few of the ones that we've heard that are driving that chronic absenteeism.
Yeah. And chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% or more of the school year. That's 18 days or almost 4 weeks of classroom instruction. Just stop and think a minute. If you called in sick to your job, 10% of the time or more, you're probably going to be having a conversation with your supervisor about that. In terms of education, what are the developmental consequences for kids who miss that much school?
Yeah, that's huge. I think about even this is before school starts, but our youngest, we have a program called Project Jordan, works with kids 0 to 3. And they talk a lot about, in that age group, they call them windows of opportunity. And that's really the same throughout as they continue to get older as well. So when they're missing school, they're missing these windows of opportunity to learn certain things in their development, both across the board, physically, developmentally, socially. All these different kind of windows are closing when they're missing so much time from school. And I think even specifically about like reading, for example, there's a lot of statistics about being able to read by 3rd grade. Even, the state is looking at that. The country is looking at how many kids are able to read. And so you're learning, I've heard this said before, you're really learning to read up till 3rd grade. And then it kind of switches to your reading to learn. Exactly. So thinking about that, and if you're missing so much school, especially early on, you're not ready to learn, you're not ready to read, you're not ready to learn, you're not able to read to learn after that. So you can kind of imagine how much that compounds as you get older. And if you're in a place where you're moving along without having some of those building blocks, it's really difficult to circle back and build back what wasn't there from the beginning.
How can schools and communities begin to reverse this rise in absenteeism?
There's some things that we've been thinking about that I think both for nonprofits like Shepherd, but also community-wise and individual-wise is I think tutoring's a big one. That's something that you could participate in through Shepherd or through the school, but getting involved in kind of that one-on-one or small group tutoring. Lots of times they refer to it as high-intensity tutoring, which just means that it's happening on a regular interval, but that one-on-one or small group tutoring, that could be around language, it could be around reading. Those would be some key areas, but obviously around other subjects as they get older also. So that tutoring's a big one. We're looking at kind of how to extend the school day. So that means after school's an option for that. Summer programs are an option for that. We've seen that in our elementary program in our partnership with United Way and the Mind Trust of being able to really invest in the summertime and the learning. What often happens is that summer learning loss. There's a chance we've seen that happen where we can stop the learning loss in the summer and keep them up to speed. So kind of taking that same approach to after school and summer programs for kids who are dealing with this chronic absenteeism, an opportunity to invest in the tutoring and that extra support in that way. I think another way is that colleges could support, when we're talking about tutoring even, colleges could support that with their students. There's an opportunity for them to learn what tutoring looks like, to increase the service that they provide, but also, and the experience that a student has as a college student if they're interested in moving into that field. But college support could be a big part of that, or other nonprofits like Shepherd kind of working together to support the school system, come around the schools. I think the other piece kind of outside of the school is really focused on the whole family. So that question at the beginning that you asked me about what are the reasons for this, a lot of them had to do with a family situation. So Shepherd does a lot of looking at the whole family and how we can support the whole family. And that's something that whether you're involved at Shepherd or you're doing in some other way, a community could look at how do you support the whole family.
Who can serve as a tutor or mentor? Do I need to have a PhD in mathematics to tutor a child?
Absolutely not. No, really, just about anybody can serve in that tutoring role, and that possibility for it to even turn into a mentoring role, where you spend time reading with a kid, listening to a kid read. You spend time working on math, and before you know it, you're talking about all sorts of life situations, life mentoring. Really, you're even thinking about just creating a future orientation where a student can look and say, you know what, this isn't how I see myself in the long term. I want to see myself here. How do I get there? And a tutor and a mentor can really help guide in that direction, to talk about kind of what plans can look like, what those intermediate steps can look like for a different future and that future orientation.
Yeah. So there's research has shown that one way to reduce absenteeism is through ministries like Shepherd, nonprofit organizations, and community, ensuring that kids have the basics that they need, right?
Yeah.
Clothing that's clean and that fits, enough food at home. How can church and business leaders partner with Shepherd to make sure families are receiving those essentials?
Yeah, those are some of those basic needs, like you mentioned, are a part of our kind of our existing program. So sometimes it's a matter of if it's a good fit for a church or a business or someone to give financially, obviously, to support in those ways through our food pantry, our food deliveries, where we're taking food to folks, our food drive-throughs. Those are all different ways that we get food out. Another really cool way is that we look to give food anytime a kid's not going to be in school. We know that's a time where food insecurity is a problem. So we send home weekend food packs. We send home anytime there's a break in school. So spring break, fall break, Christmas break. we're sending food home in totes in those cases. And we've had some really great partnerships over the years with churches and businesses where they help provide the food for those, where they help pack those food totes and bring them here, and we get those out to all the students in the area and support in that way. I think another way is just you can volunteer in those ways. So when I talked about delivering food, it's a great way to connect and volunteer in that way, or other events like our mobile drive-through pantry. We hand out food, so we load up trunks 2 Fridays a month, and so that's another great opportunity. So there's some volunteer, some giving, some serving opportunities that we'd love folks to come alongside and help support the whole family to address this issue.
It's all connected, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this issue, their set of issues, has caught the attention of lawmakers and policymakers in Indiana and in D.C. And they're talking about how to confront the increase in absenteeism. What would you say to those policymakers about how they can help?
Yeah. I think the biggest part is probably about kind of the mindset in which we approach it, because it would be easy to look at it and say, this kid's not at school, we need to punish them. And we need to figure out, why they're not here and punish it as the solution to create a different way. But I would contend that the punitive policies aren't going to be the ones that will be the most effective. When I talked about, and you asked that question around the whole family and how complex it is, that's what we need to look at from a policy perspective, is not punitive, but supportive of families and realizing the complex situation that so many of these kids are in. And policymakers can help with that. I think there's an opportunity to incentivize communities around supporting schools in that way, in those supportive services, and other nonprofits like Shepherd or churches, but the community as a whole can be also incentivized and invited in to those partnerships. So I think there's sometimes some barriers between schools and school districts and the bureaucracy that exists there and nonprofits, churches, things like that. So there's an opportunity for some policies to help support families in that way too. So those would be a couple of the biggest ways that I think policymakers could be looking at this differently.
Thank you, Andrew, for helping us learn. It's a really important set of issues, helping us learn and understand more about it.
Absolutely.
For 38 years, Shepherd Community has made a lasting difference in the lives of thousands and thousands of neighbors. The Shepherd team couldn't do that work without the support of donors, partners, and volunteers. To learn more about how you can help, please visit shepherdcommunity.org. Thank you for listening.